Panchagam Shanti, Dhyau Shanti, Disha Shantiravantara, Disha Shantiragni Shantir, Vayu Shantiraditya Shanti, Chandrama Shantir, Nakshatrani Shantirapa Shantiroshadaya Shanti, Vanaspataya Shanti, Gau Shanti Raja Shanti Rashva Shanti, Purusha Shanti, Brahma Shanti Brahmana Shanti, Shanti Deva Shanti Shanti Me Astu Shanti. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra Sukhinas Santu, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Sarvastaratu Durgani, Sarvo Bhadrani Pashyatu, Sarvas Sadbuddhimapnotu, Sarvas Sarvatra Nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Shanti 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 Hari Om.
We will sing O Face of Bliss on the next to the last page.
அல்லல் எனும் ஆசரே தாட்கொள்ளும் தெய்வமே அப்பனே தில்லை நகர்வாழ் அப்பனே அப்பனே தில்லை நகர்வாழ் அதிபதி ஜனகாதி துதிபதி சிவகாமி அன்பில் உரை நடனபதியே நடனபதியே சந்திரசேகரா ஈஷா ஈஷா சுந்தரேஸ்வரா கௌரீஷா செஞ்சடாதரா சந்திரசேகரா ஈஷா ஈஷா சுந்தரேஸ்வரா கௌரீஷா செஞ்சடாதரா சந்திரசேகரா ஈஷா சுந்தரேஸ்வரா கௌரீஷா செஞ்சடாதரா ஈஷா சந்திரசேகரா ஈஷா சுந்தரேஸ்வரா கௌரீஷா செஞ்சடாதரா ஈஷா சந்திரசேகரா அந்திவண்ணனே शम्भो ओ ओ अन्दिवर्णने शम्भो शम्भो अरुळ्मूकर्णने स्वयंभो दिवर्णने शम्भो अरुळ्मूकर्णने स्वयंभो दिवर्णने शम्भो अरुळ्मूकर्णने स्वयंभो दिवर्णने शम्भो अरुळ्मूकर्णने स्वयंभो दिवर्णने Chidambaresha Kailasavasa Chidetiravadai Chidambaresha Kailasavasa Chandrasekhara Chandrasekhara Isha Sundareshwara Gaurisha Sinjaradara Isha Chandrasekhara
Hari Om. I'll be reading a passage from the book titled Education by Swami Tyagananda. Chapter 5 is The Teacher and the Taught, and it is about what it means to be a good disciple. It is not easy to be a disciple. The first condition is that the student who wants to know the truth must give up all desires for gain. What we see is not truth as long as any desire creeps into our minds. So long as there is in the heart the least desire for the world, truth will not come. The rich understand truth much less than the poor people. The rich man has no time to think of anything beyond his wealth and power, his comforts and indulgences. I do not trust the man who never weeps. He has a big block of granite where his heart should be. Therefore, knowing what prosperity means and what happiness means, one should give up these and seek to know the truth and truth alone. Unselfishness is more paying, only people have not the patience to practice it. Love, truth, and unselfishness are not merely moral figures of speech, but they form our highest ideal, because in them lies such a manifestation of power. Self-restraint is a manifestation of greater power than all outgoing action. All outgoing energy following a selfish motive is frittered away. It will not cause power to return to you, but if restrained, it will result in development of power. This self-control will tend to produce a mighty will, a character which makes a Christ or a Buddha. The second condition is that a disciple must be able to control the internal and external senses. By hard practice, he has to arrive at the stage where he can assert his mind against the commands of nature. He should be able to say to his mind, "You are mine, I order you, do not see or hear anything." Next, the mind must be made to quiet down. It is rushing about. Why should the mind think thoughts that I do not want it to think? I am, as it were, a slave to the mind. No spiritual knowledge is possible so long as the mind is restless and out of control. The disciple has to learn to control the mind. Also, the disciple must have great power of endurance. Life seems comfortable and you find the mind behaves well and when everything is going well for you. But if something goes wrong, your mind loses its balance. That is not good. Bear all evil and misery without one murmur or hurt, without one thought of unhappiness, resistance, remedy, or retaliation. That is true endurance. When my master, Sri Ramakrishna, fell ill, a Brahmin suggested to him that he apply his tremendous mental power to cure himself. He said that if my master would only concentrate his mind on the diseased part of the body, it would heal. Sri Ramakrishna answered, "What? Bring down the mind that I have given to God to this little body?" He refused to think of body and illness. His mind was continually conscious of God. It was dedicated to Him utterly. He would not use it for any other purpose. Remember also the man on the cross. He pitied those who crucified Him. He endured every humiliation and suffering. He took the burden all upon Himself. Such is true endurance. How very high He was above this life, so high that we cannot understand it. The next condition the disciple must fulfill is to conceive an extreme desire to be free. Renunciation of the senses and desires is the only way out of misery. If you want to be spiritual, you must renounce. This is a real test. Give up the world, this nonsense of the senses. There is only one real desire, to know what is true, to be spiritual. No more materialism, no more this egoism. I must become spiritual. Strong, intense must be the desire. If a man's hands and feet were so tight that he cannot move, and then if a burning piece of charcoal were placed on his body, he would struggle with all his power to throw it off. When I shall have that sort of extreme desire, that restless struggle to throw off this burning world, then the time will have come for me to glimpse the divine truth. Our sole concern should be to know the highest truth. Our goal is the loftiest. Let us worship the Spirit in spirit, standing on spirit. Let the foundation be spirit, the middle spirit, the culmination spirit. Stand thou in the spirit. That is the goal. We know we cannot reach it yet. Never mind. Do not despair, but do not drag the ideal down. The important thing is how much less you think of the body, of yourself as matter, as dull, dead, insentient matter. How much more you think of yourself as a shining, immortal being. The more you think of yourself as shining, immortal being, the more eager you will be to be absolutely free of matter, body, and senses. This is the intense desire to be free. These are the conditions which a man who wants to be a disciple must fulfill. Without fulfilling them, he will not be able to come in contact with the true Guru, and even if he is fortunate enough to find him, he will not be quickened by the power that the Guru may transmit. There cannot be any compromising of these conditions. With the fulfillment of these conditions, the lotus of the disciple's heart will open and the bee shall come. Then the disciple knows that the Guru was within himself. He opens out, he realizes, he crosses the ocean of life, goes beyond, and in mercy, without a thought of gain or praise, he in turn helps others to cross. With the teacher, our relationship is the same as that between an ancestor and his descendant. Without faith, humility, submission, and veneration in our hearts towards the teacher, there cannot be any growth in us. And thus, the conditions necessary for the taught are purity, a real thirst after knowledge, and perseverance. Purity in thought, speech, and act is absolutely necessary. As for thirst After knowledge, it is an old law that we all get whatever we want. None of us can get anything other than what we fix our hearts upon. There must be a continuous struggle, a constant fight, an unremitting grappling with our lower nature till the higher want is actually felt and victory is achieved. The student who sets out with such a spirit of perseverance will surely find success at last. Om.
My readings today are taken from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Heart of Buddha's Teaching. Chapter 6. Stopping, calming, resting, healing. Buddhist meditation has two aspects, shamatha and vipashana. We tend to stress the importance of vipashana, looking deeply, that can bring us insight and liberate us from suffering and afflictions. But the practice of shamatha, stopping, is fundamental. If we cannot stop, we cannot have insight. There is a story in Zen circles about a man and a horse. The horse is galloping quickly. It appears that the man on the horse is going somewhere important. Another man, standing alongside the road, shouts, "Where are you going?" And the first man replies, "I don't know, ask the horse." This is also our story. We are riding a horse, we don't know where we are going, and we can't stop. The horse is our habit energy pulling us along, and we are powerless. We are always running, and it has become a habit. We struggle all the time, even during our sleep. We are at war with ourselves, and we can easily start a war with others. We have to learn the art of stopping our thinking, our habit energies, our forgetfulness, the strong emotions that rule us. When an emotion rushes through us like a storm, we have no peace. We turn on the TV, and then we turn it off. Pick up a book, and then we put it down. How can we stop this state of agitation? How can we stop our fear, despair, anger, and craving? We can stop by practicing mindful breathing, mindful walking, mindful smiling, and deep looking in order to understand. When we are mindful, touching deeply the present moment, the fruits are always understanding, acceptance, love, and the desire to relieve suffering and bring joy. But our habit energies are often stronger than our volition. We say and do things we don't want to, and afterwards we regret it. We make ourselves and others suffer, and we bring about a lot of damage. We may vow not to do it again, but we do it again. Why? Because our habit energies push us. We need the energy of mindfulness to recognize and be present with our habit energy in order to stop this course of destruction. With mindfulness, we have the capacity to recognize the habit energy every time it manifests. Hello, my habit energy, I know you're there. If we just smile to it, it will lose much of its strength. Mindfulness is the energy that allows us to recognize our habit energy and prevent it from dominating us. Forgetfulness is the opposite. We drink a cup of tea, but we do not know we are drinking a cup of tea. We sit with the person we love, but we don't know that she is there. We walk, but we are not really walking. We are someplace else, thinking about the past and the future. The horse of our habit energy is carrying us along, and we are its captive. We need to stop our horse and reclaim our liberty. We need to shine the light of mindfulness on everything we do, so the darkness of forgetfulness will disappear. The first function of meditation, shamatha, is to stop. The second function of shamatha is calming. When we have a strong emotion, we know it can be dangerous to act, but we don't have the strength or clarity to refrain. We have to learn the art of breathing in and out, stopping our activities and calming our emotions. We have to learn to become solid and stable like an oak tree and not be blown from side to side by the storm. The Buddha taught us many techniques to help us calm our body and mind and look deeply at them. They can be summarized in 5 stages. Stage 1, recognition. If we are angry, we say, I know that anger is in me. Stage 2, acceptance. When we are angry, we do not deny it. We accept what is present. Stage 3, embracing. We hold our anger in our two arms like a mother holds a crying baby. Our mindfulness embraces our emotion, and this alone can calm our anger and ourselves. Stage 4, looking deeply. When we are calm enough, we can look deeply to understand what has brought this anger to be and what is causing our body's discomfort. Stage 5, insight. The fruit of looking deeply is understanding the many causes and conditions, primary and secondary, that have brought about our anger, that are causing our baby to cry. Perhaps our baby is hungry. Perhaps his diaper pin is piercing his skin. Our anger was triggered when our friend spoke to us meanly, and suddenly we remember that he was not at his best today because his father is dying. We reflect like this until we have some insight into what has caused our suffering. With insight, we know what to do and what not to do to change the situation. After calming, the third function of samatha is resting. Suppose someone standing alongside a river throws a pebble in the air and it falls down into the river. The pebble allows itself to sink slowly and reach the bed of the river without any effort. Once the pebble is at the bottom, it continues to rest, allowing the water to pass by. When we practice sitting meditation, we can allow ourselves to rest, just like that pebble. We can allow ourselves to sink naturally into the position of sitting, resting without effort. We have to learn the art of resting, allowing our mind and body to rest. If we have wounds in our body or our mind, we have to rest so they can heal themselves. Calming allows us to rest, and resting is a precondition for healing. When animals in the ground get wounded, they find a place to lie down, and they rest completely for many days. They don't think about food or anything else. They just rest, and they get the healing they need. When we humans get sick, we just worry. We look for doctors and medicine, but we don't stop. Even when we go to the beach or the mountain for a vacation, we don't rest, and we come back more tired than before. We have to learn to rest. Lying down is not the only position for resting. During sitting or walking meditation, we can rest very well. Meditation does not have to be hard labor. Just allow your body and mind to rest like an animal in the forest. Don't struggle. There is no need to attain anything. I'm writing a book, but I'm not struggling. I'm resting also. Please read in a joyful yet restful way. The Buddha said, my dharma is the practice of non-practice. Practice in a way that does not tire you out, but gives you body, emotions, and consciousness a chance to rest. Our body and mind have the capacity to heal themselves if we allow them to rest. Stopping, calming, and resting are preconditions for healing. If we cannot stop the course of our destruction, we'll just continue. The world needs healing. Individuals, communities, and nations need healing. The second reading is from chapter 11, and I'm going to read only the first 4 pages. Right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is at the heart of the Buddha's teachings. Traditionally, right mindfulness is the 7th on the path of 8 right practices, but is presented here third to emphasize its great importance. When right mindfulness is present, the 4 noble truths and the other 7 other elements of the Eightfold Path are also present. When we are mindful, our thinking is right thinking, our speech is right speech, and so on. Right mindfulness is the energy that brings us back to the present moment. To cultivate mindfulness in ourselves is to cultivate the Buddha within, to cultivate the high spirit. According to Buddhist psychology, the trait attention, manaskara, is universal, which means we are always giving our attention to something. Our attention may be appropriate, as when we dwell fully in the present moment, or inappropriate, as when we are attentive to something that takes us away from being here and now. A good gardener knows the way to grow flowers from compost. Right mindfulness accepts everything without judgment or reaching. It is inclusive and loving. The practice is to find ways to sustain appropriate attention throughout the day. The Sanskrit word for mindfulness, smriti, means remember. Mindfulness is remembering to come back to the present moment. The character of the Chinese use for mindfulness has two parts. The upper part means now, the lower part means mind or heart. The first miracle for mindfulness is to be present and able to touch deeply the blue sky, the flower, and the smile of a child. The second miracle of mindfulness is to make the other, the sky, the flower, our child, present also. In the Vietnamese epic poem Tale of Q, Q returns to the apartment of a beloved, Kim Trong, and finds him fast asleep at his desk, his head resting on a pile of books. Kim Trong hears Q's footsteps, but not quite awake. He asks, "Are you there, or am I dreaming?" Q replies, "Now we have the opportunity to see each other clearly. But if we do not live deeply at this moment, it will only be a dream. You and your loved ones are here together. You have the chance to see each other deeply. But if you are not fully present, everything will be like a dream." The third miracle of mindfulness is to nourish the object of your attention. When was the last time you looked into the eyes of your beloved and asked, "Who are you, my darling?" Don't be satisfied by a superficial answer. Ask again, "Who are you? Who has taken my suffering and your suffering? My unhappiness as your happiness, my life and death as your life and death, my love. Why aren't you a dewdrop, a butterfly, a bird?" Ask with your whole being. If you not give right attention to the one you love, it is a kind of killing. When you are in the car together, if you are lost in your thoughts, assuming you already know everything about her, she will slowly die. But with mindfulness, your attention will water the wilting flower. I know you are here, beside me, and it makes me very happy. With attention, you will be able to discover many new and wondrous things, her joys, her hidden talents, her deepest aspirations. If you do not practice appropriate attention, how can you say you love her? The fourth miracle of mindfulness is to relieve the other's suffering. I know you are suffering, that is why I am here for you. You can say these with words or just by the way you look at them. If you are not fully present, if you are thinking of other things, the miracle of relieving suffering cannot be realized. In difficult moments, if you have a friend who can be truly present with you, you know you are blessed. To love means to nourish the other with appropriate attention. The fifth miracle of mindfulness is looking deeply, vipassana, which is also the second aspect of meditation. Because you are calm and concentrated, you are really there for deep looking. You shine the light of mindfulness on the light of your object of your attention. At the same time, you shine the light of mindfulness on yourself. You observe the object of your attention, and you also see your own storehouse full of precious gems. The sixth miracle of mindfulness is understanding. When we understand something, often we say, "I see." We see something we haven't seen before. Seeing and understanding come from within us. When we are mindful, touching deeply the present moment, we can see and listen deeply. And the fruits are always understanding, acceptance, love, and the desire to relieve suffering and bring joy. Understanding is the very foundation of love. When you understand someone, you cannot help but love him or her. The seventh miracle of mindfulness is transformation. When we practice right mindfulness, we touch the healing and refreshing elements of life and begin to transform our own suffering and the suffering of the world. Practicing the 7 miracles of mindfulness helps us lead a happy and healthy life, transforming suffering and bringing forth peace, joy, and freedom. Thank you.
My Way, My Truth, My Life on page 12. Satoma Sakamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravir Maheti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. In this coming week, from November 1st to 7th, there will be the World's Parliament of Religions in Toronto, Canada. It's held once every 4 years, as all of us are aware. The first one was held in 1893, and in 1993, 100 years after that, they first observed the centenary of that event. And at that time they also formed a committee, freshly constituted committee, and resolved to observe this Parliament of Religions once every 4 years in a different city. And it is held now several places, held in Australia, Africa, Europe, and yeah. So last 4 years ago it was held in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then this time it's in Toronto. And this also happens to be the 125th anniversary of that event. And so it's special. It's being celebrated in many parts of the world. And because Swami Vivekananda he was really one of the many speakers at the original Parliament held in 1893, but increasingly, because of the impression and the influence he had on that event, whenever people remember the first Parliament that was held, Vivekananda is among the first name that comes up. And so at this Parliament, which will begin on the 1st, in the opening plenary, they have invited me to speak. I'm in fact the first speaker because of Swami Vivekananda's presence, and so it's a big occasion. And the theme for this time's Parliament is the promise of inclusion and the power of love. And so those were the keynote addresses will be addressed on these issues of inclusion and love. And these are the topics that we have addressed in many different contexts at Vedanta. And so that's what my mind has been thinking about a little bit more intensely in these few days. The idea of inclusion, how much related it is to the idea of identity. Because only when what we include and what we exclude depends on our identity. And we simultaneously carry many identities at every level, gender, culture, religion, and our various interests in life, and so on. It's a big subject. Any identity does two things. If you get identified with something, but then if you're identified with something, anything that is not a part of that something gets excluded. So identity gives us a sense of belonging, a sense of I-ness with something, but it also then cuts us off from what we see as not me or not mine. Love, on the other hand, is primarily that mysterious power of bringing together, the power that tries to remove separation, the power that tries to remove exclusion. It's mysterious because it can't be artificially generated. No one knows when and how it comes. Love is not an emotion, it's not a feeling, because emotions can come and go. There are feelings rise and fall. But love, as it is, has a constancy to it. It's very stable. And so it seems to me that the more we can expand our identity, our own identity can be expanded to such an extent that no one and nothing can be excluded from it, then love becomes a natural process. And one way Vedanta tries to address this issue is by trying to peel through all these limited identities that we have and see what remains. And the discovery that they made was that when all of our limited identities are removed, what remains is the infinite. And once the infinite is reached, no one and nothing gets excluded. And then the natural result is love. So love is always an effortless path. If we have to make an effort to love someone, then there is a problem somewhere. Anyway, so these are the kind of thoughts that have been uppermost in my mind, and maybe going forward we might have opportunities to discuss further. So I would encourage you to think about these matters, about the different identities each of us carries, and how these identities make us include some people as within my world, and how we exclude some people as outside, and what we can do to increase the bubble in which we are. In fact, ideally, what we might say is enlightenment would be the bursting of the bubble, so there will be no limitations. So these are the kind of things it might be worth reflecting on going forward. There will be at least, generally, about 8 to 10,000 people generally attend this parliament, so it's a big thing. So even as those people will be grappling with these issues in many different ways, every one of us, wherever we are, can try to reflect on these in our own lives. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. So now we will have the closing prayer, and we have Sarvamangala, and after that we'll come and have soup, and then we will also celebrate the birthday of everyone born in the month of October. How many of you are October months? Okay, good. Well, there is a cake waiting for us there, so let's finish that. May the Divine Being, who is the Father in heaven of the Christians, Holy One of the Jewish faith, Allah of the Muslims, Buddha of the Buddhists, Tao of the Taoists, Ahura Mazda of the Zoroastrians, the Great Spirit of the Native Americans, and Brahman of the Hindus, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May we be granted strength, freedom, and clear understanding. May we learn to see God in our own hearts and in everyone around us. May God bless us all and fill our hearts with gratitude, grace, and love. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you all. Before we go to the Sarvamangala, let me just tell you about the upcoming programs. So next week we will have another Antar Yoga, but that will be for November. So that will be next Sunday, just as we had today, music, readings, and so on. This Wednesday we will not have the Kathopanishad class, but the meditation on Tuesday and Saturday will continue as usual.
We will sing Sarvamangala on page 5.